In today's episode of HR Visionaries, we talk with Judith about how technology can enable us to unlock completely new levels of productivity. Stay tuned. Welcome to HR Visionaries, the show where we discover the truth behind contemporary HR. I'm your host, Benjamin. Join me as I unfold today's talent ecosystem with HR innovators from around the globe. Welcome to the latest episode of HR Visionaries. I'm very much looking forward to my guest today, Judith. It's great to have you on.
Thanks, Benjamin. Very nice to be here. Looking forward.
Judith, can you tell us a bit about yourself? Who are you?
Who am I? Well, I'm a curious person. I'm a learner and I love people. I'm quite obsessed with observing it. And my motto is unleashing potential of individuals and organizations. And the more responsibility I got, the more I'm also, I love to be the catalyst for personal development of an individual. And I'm really so obsessed with it that I also do it in my leisure time. Hopefully with people that are volunteering. Yes, mostly with people that are volunteering. But I also love to, understand where an organization wants to go and then build the several puzzle pieces together that will explode the thing at one point in time.
In a positive way. Well,
for sure.
Can you tell us a bit about your job? So what do you do professionally?
Yes, absolutely. So since a long time ago, over 20 years, and it was more by chance, my start into it. I have some people roles, and yes, broadening them with my alongside of my career path. I have worked in different industries. So I started my my journey at Siemens. Then I joined Danone, which I consider my HR school. And then I said, okay, I need to go into tech now because HR is being reinvented there. So I joined a fabulous mission at Scout24. And now I've landed, almost 7 years ago. Oh my God, in the chemical industry, in a SME global company, a niche player, but a really ambitious one, for specialty chemistry, for paint, for steel and aluminum. And this is a Swedish company. With a high ambition on sustainability. That's why I'm learning a lot about that. And I also try to make some mark in the people sustainability space there.
Well, you just mentioned you went into tech because HR was reinvented there, or has been reinvented, or is being reinvented.
All the time.
Exactly. All the time. So how did HR reinvent itself?
Well, I was fascinated at that time with the likes of, I think Google was one of Laszlo Bock, right? He was one of the really, inspirational figures. I had already learned quite some stuff about people analytics in Danone. So I started working with it quite seriously with a team already I would say in 2005. And I remember, do you remember? I don't know, maybe you're too young. The fashion trend at that time was going into Silicon Valley and have this kind of journey as the old economy company to check out some new school companies in Silicon Valley. And I think we did that, and it was a cool trip with an international group of HR directors at Danone in 2006, I think, something like that. And there we looked at some really progressive companies and were already inspired by that. Yeah. So I remember, I think it was into it. Was a quite boring software company for tax consulting. But they had a very, very interesting approach, and they could already do predictive analysis. So they were correlating, hard data of retention, of health rate, of this kind of stuff, with some engagement soft data, like feeling data, what people feel and what people do. And they had correlated this analytics already for some years, and they could make predictions. In 2006, and then 20 years, nothing happened, something like that, right? But I was inspired by that, so I tried. I could not do that, so that was not possible. But I was inspired by that, and that's why then. And then I learned. I read a lot of. I always read a lot of books, but for sure, for example, the analysis of how to raise the recruitment excellence that was done by Google, or how they also analyzed leadership, what is team management, what is the right thing there, with a very analytical approach. Or also Amazon with their bar raiser in recruitment excellence, for example. Yeah, that there were quite some. Then the legendary Netflix document on culture, which is actually Human Sense. Not a lot more than that, right? So I was very inspired. So I thought, okay, I need to go into this space to learn more and yes, contribute as well.
I think you raised a super interesting point there that, in particular, those companies that have grown so tremendously over the last 20 years. So when you think about the S&P 500, so companies with a market cap of around of $3 to $4 trillion, were only founded 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And this growth, of course, market capitalization is not everything, but anyhow, this tremendous growth was, generated by the people that were hired, and therefore you needed, and you still need, amazing recruiting excellence indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was joking always that, sometimes you probably hear that, and I think it's boring, but that HR is a kind of soft function within the company, or it's not really, very strategic, not really in the center. But actually, if you think about it, yes, business success, I would always be humble and say it's 50%, but probably it's much more. And I always looked at people that were looking a little bit down on HR, the function or whatever. I don't know, you need a kind of enemy, or I don't know what it is. Like the bashing was really in fashion. I don't know, I don't hear it so much, but maybe I'm also so ignorant. But I always joke that normally if I see the careers of people, a lot of, big managers with big titles, they become coaches then, or they become headhunters at the at the later stage of their career. And I always joke, okay, I'm privileged because I already started quite by chance in the people function. So I'm privileged because it's the most unpredictable topic within a company, I would say. And that's why I'm fascinated also after, more than, 25 years or something like that. Absolutely.
Well, I think what is very often underestimated is getting the right people on board, and what kind of impact it has on your company with regards to innovation, with regards to productivity, with regards to, leveling up your organization, not necessarily a company, but could also be a government organization, but leveling up your organization to the next level where the organization is so much more competitive. And this is driven by people. This is not driven only by the top management, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I was for 1 year a host of a manager lounge, and there was one really cool lecture of one guy that was specialized in recruitment. And he had this calculation of return on invest if you are bringing in the right person. And it's not very, I don't know, it's not very visible, but I completely agree. I forgot the ratio, but it was quite an impressive one. Like, I don't know, several hundred of, yes, several times 100% of return on invest. And you can also look at it, especially on functions or projects or business situations where you bring in then which are dire or they are super challenging or there's a lot of conflict or something, and then you change the leader on the top of this organization or the one that takes the full responsibility, and there's a complete different first atmosphere, clarity, energy, and the results change quite fast. It's really fascinating. And in Danone, I had because I was a talent manager or director at that time, one job, which was really a cool job because it was after an acquisition. So that was really a very important task to find the right people leading, and taking responsibility to adapt the strategy on local needs and everything. And then I developed some theories. I called it at that time profiling. Yeah. So what's the maturity of the business and which profile do you need? And I had this very simple model of, okay, for mature countries, there is this turnaround person that really comes in and needs to take tough decisions and really needs to restructure and needs to be courageous, yeah, and be quite used to be quite lonely to make those tough decisions. Or then the other one that is kind of within a bigger multinational is in this leading country, high market share, super sophisticated, doing always the newest and latest innovation because they handle the basics in a complete, they're super mature already, right? And they can then test some new process or whatever and train the other guys, or train the other countries. And then for emerging countries, I had these two ideas of, okay, the startup person that is really very resilient, especially in emerging countries. Yeah, you have a natural disaster or you have a political, well, actually, we are turning into emerging countries in this perspective, but very resilient, taking 2 steps and then go back 3 steps and really build it up. But also have the kind of foresight to not make stupid beginners mistakes that you are suffering then for years. And then the other profile, like a high growth profile, yeah, in emerging countries, because yes, you can also, well, at that time, we were also used to sometimes 40% growth, or in tech, you have even higher rates, right? Of growth where you really kind of leave the balls in the air, scale it in a quite high speed with more pragmatic approach. You cannot be super sophisticated in everything. You need to still have control, but also kind of keep the balls in the air, right? So that was my very simple profiling method, and I tried to really understand it. And I think it's still valid to really understand, okay, what is the need for this position? What's actually the success factor? And then the longer I work, I also believe, in what is giving energy to the different personalities. Because at the end, if it gives you energy, if you love it, then you will be successful at the end, right? If you always need to say, oh, no, again, a high growth person to do a turnaround it's really quite painful for them, and vice versa, right? So I think there's really makes a lot of sense to really analyze it in a hopefully most precise way, what's the traits and what does the person also, get energy from.
Indeed, and I was wondering, since you mentioned the high growth personality, well, how do you, in your organization, enable productivity growth? It's not necessarily only the growth person you need.
No, that's true. That's true. So we actually also within Becker's Group, we have our 2030 strategy, and then there is also, because we have 17 countries, and they have a role to play within the overall arching business strategy. It's a growth strategy overall, but for sure, if you have a high market share, you will more defend it. Which is not so easy, right? This is the energy. If you are, if you are the offense player and you are hunting those big guys, maybe that's even an easier situation to be in. Yeah, so everybody has a different role, and then you need to match it. Yeah, so I think it's very important to analyze it. What's the right role for the country? Are they playing more on defense? Can they try some innovations because they are very mature? Or is it actually securing also profitability to then sponsor the new kids on the block that have, yes, some bigger potential just out of the numbers of the market position? Yeah, and then understand what are the key drivers for that. And we just did a very simple exercise with the countries, because I also said, okay, I would like, because in Becker's, HR was not very mature. So they almost, when I came there 7 years ago, they had survived without very, I don't know, strategic HR functions for 150 years. So I needed to also be calm, and say, be a bit humble. Yeah, they did very well without myself or somebody similar, and without the team. So I need to really see where can it, and for sure there are a lot of spaces for that, and that was also clear for our supervisory board and also the top management. And then you bring in some process, some basic stuff, some conviction, what is right for the company. And after this phase, I just recently did it. I said, okay, so we have our 2030 strategy. And now I want to have ownership also of the countries, to use people as a business driver, yeah? And really helping to realize, because the worst thing I think is, okay, we do it for HR because they are bringing us some boring process or some very complicated stuff, and they are so happy about it, so we do it for the sake of them or whatever, or we do it because they are forcing us. Or so we have just very simple build, and I tried to make it fun to have a superhero. So this, I had a little cartoon character actually built by AI, and then said, okay, so what are the big levers? It's simple. It's people, organization, and culture. And now, okay, we have a very short description behind it. Yeah, so for people, right skills for the future, right people in place, and people fairly paid. Super simple. Yeah. And then also, again, so some sub points under organization and culture. And then send that out to the countries to rate them themselves from 1 to 10. Because this scaling effect, I really, this is like this coaching trick, right? That you say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel? Then people need to make and then they get clearer about that themselves immediately, right? It's a very easy trick, but it's really cool. And we said, okay, so please rate yourself from 1 to 10. How ready is your organization for 2030 in those aspects?
Is it possible to provide a negative number?
Well, it's 1 to 10. Come on, Benjamin. Well, it's a cultural thing also. I'm a German, so I could have over-engineered it, and probably that is also the expectation. But I'm not I'm not very typical German. So I could have over-engineered it and say no, or very sophisticatedly engineered it, not over-engineered it, to say, okay, you can only put a 7 if you are this and this and this level. But at this point in time, I just said, okay, do it yourself. And the funny thing is, it's really a culture. It's also an engagement service. I'm sure you have seen that, right? That there's cultures that give a 1 and a 10. And then there's cultures that give between 7 and 10. Yeah. Okay, whatever. We can read it. We can read between the lines. We also know them. So we can really make the score. And now I have a nice already, with this exercise, I know what we will focus on next year. It's very simple now for me. And I think that's also good. And that's, again, the maturity level. We needed to build some basic stuff. And then this was what we needed to do. But now, in this phase, I want to really solve the problems of the countries also. Yeah. So I need to get very close to them.
But you need to tell us now what were the results of the readiness survey. So where do people think they are, and where do you think they are?
To be honest, so I need to go deeper and everything. So I just looked at the big picture top 10. And the top 1 was really right skills for the future. Because I think everybody realizes, especially also in an organization that is over 150 years, what is happening with all these new technologies. And really step changes in the way how we do it, that yes, the skills development is key. That is like the future kind of progressive one, the AI and likes, but also there's a demographical change as well, right? So we are losing, so our company, as we are, yes, we need very smart chemists. And we also rely on really very niche expertise, or we rely on it, and more importantly, our customers are relying on it. Yeah, so that's why I understood from the countries this is on top of their agenda. Yeah? So that's the top number 1. The top number 2 is also right people in place. And then I think, let me just check it. Where we were really good, and that's also very nice feedback, is, for example, clarity of strategic direction. Everybody was super high on that. So that is also a good learning, that apparently all the countries have understood where are we going and what is really how we measure results, yes, what is this role of the country also. So that was a nice insight. And would I agree with those self gap analysis on a high level, what I could see? Yes, absolutely. So we're quite aligned. And we have smart people out there. So I will not challenge them too much on that. Maybe on the that how good they are, or that I probably would challenge them a bit.
Well, to be fair, 2030 is actually quite a challenge. So it's quite a question you ask people. I'm honestly still shy to ask about 2027 or 2028. But the issue around skills for the future that has been coming up on HR Visionaries quite often in recent conversations. Given now that we all kind of agree that, well, AI or more digital processes will have quite a big impact on what we're going to do in the future. We now need to find out what kind of skills are needed. I read an article yesterday from I think was the World Economic Forum talking about, will AI kill jobs? And the result was, well, things will change and people will do different things. However, who could have imagined 30 years ago that there will be millions of people involved in the app industry when there wasn't even a smartphone? And therefore, I found that actually quite interesting, and it kind of it's the same kind of story. Well, we don't really know what kind of skills we might need, since, well, telling someone, okay, in 20 years time you will be an app developer, and it was like, okay, well, seriously,
what is that?
No.
Or an influencer, or those funny jobs. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's sad that I was just in a kind of CHRO call some weeks ago, and the funny thing was, and that was for me new insight, that apparently they found out it was a consultancy that are doing their research, and they found out that HR people at the moment are the most optimistic concerning AI in companies. They are the most open and welcoming. So it would be interesting. They did not specify the why for that, because I'm also sometimes, I joined, well, I was in tech, so I was completely about, smart data and machine learning, and not that I'm an expert at all, but I knew those buzzwords, yeah. And I said, okay, in a chemical company, probably the formulations, where's the data, where's the assets here and everything. So I was fully, inspired, joining then my current company, and there were some people already aware, but they did not really accelerate the whole thing at that time. And I felt at that time really on my own kind of interested in this topic. And now it was funny for me that this consultancy said that actually it's quite typical for people or for HR people to be now the most curious about it. Yeah. So do you have any idea why HR is there in the lead, at least on openness?
Well, I have a theory. I think people in the HR space realize, okay, well, there is so much more to do, and in particular, HR is incredibly busy with all kind of admin stuff, and nobody went into the HR space to do admin stuff.
Yeah.
However, this is the reality everyone ended up with. So that's my theory, but I would be curious to hear other theories.
No, and there's probably a big truth, and that is also my criticism about the HR function, that we first of all think about our own stuff and not start with, okay, where's the business going and what is really helping that. So I would actually say that within our company, the biggest potential for AI will be in R&D and in operations. And yes, there are, we bought an ATS now, a new one, and they have some fancy AI functionalities that I'm super keen to test now. Yeah, or in also the communications department. Yes, we use the obvious functionalities as well, but they are making it easier, but they will not do the step change for the company. So that will be in other functions. But overall, this fear, and this is strange, yes, and it's probably not only in the German angst that is always with, okay, something new. Oh my God, what will happen? What will be the disaster around the corner? But I think this topic about AI stealing job and what is the impact, that has been around for some years, but actually we should turn it around. and a lot of people are doing that as well, I would say, okay, what's the opportunity? Because for me, I really don't love routine work. So I'm very happy, yeah, that I hopefully I can delegate those things to a machine and really focus on the real interesting stuff, where you need more creativity, where it's solving complex problems, cultural change, those things that need really, yes, observation, also for sure looking at data as an indication, but also need some creativity and some inspiration also for the organization, right? To build some, yeah, some momentum there as well.
What are your three top picks with regards to the interesting stuff you want to focus on when AI does the repetitive work?
I cannot now answer it in a different way. Looking at the priorities now my colleagues in the countries give me, so I cannot just say, okay, those are my fancy my fancy own fashion topics that I like, so I will focus on that. No, so I will go along this HR readiness. Okay, so what is the skills development and how do we enable people, especially, you know, in a traditional company? It's more building curiosity, I think, and also growth mindset. Because then the skills development, I think they will also contribute much more, if they open up and especially, you know, in chemistry, what I really I'm fascinated here is people are very smart, but they are not very risk friendly, which makes sense, for chemists, for our society, the planet, and for sure. So they want to make things right, but that is sometimes also blocking them to really rethink it, and innovate. And it slows things down, because of risk management or risk aversion, or a little bit, oh my God, we cannot do it perfectly the first time. So I think probably then we as the people function, and I hope we are also already doing that. For example, we built a small leadership journey where we bring topics that are more towards coaching, towards resilience, towards team efficiency. Some themes that we get out of the engagement survey that are, you know, proven in our data, that are topics, and then we give some impulses. So that is how we try to handle it. And then I believe in the functional skills development. Yeah, I believe in, well, that also the representatives of the functions, if they have this new growth mindset, or a kind of improved mindset, or a kind of, you know, that they feel more confident in it, that they are then also taking responsibility to build some programs to support new colleagues, give them more space, but also think about how to use new technology. So, for example, I just, because I was curious, I organized a workshop, and I did not really prepare it very well, and invited some representatives of our functions, and had then a consultancy work with us and just work on use cases for all the functions, and dedicate one day. And I knew, and I see it already paying off. I didn't want to make a big program, a big project, something, but I know that smart people, if you give them some opportunity also to, you know, to exchange with some colleagues and really look, you know, just dedicate some time outside of the daily, whatever, normal stuff, they understand very fast, and they will continue working on it. And then it's just more than, okay, at one point in time, help them to, okay, what are we prioritizing now? What are the big things that we really need to put money in? So I really believe in that. So it's really more bringing some offer, giving some methods, and building this growth mindset. I'm still thinking that's a very good attitude. But we also talked about, not yet, but we mentioned it when we just opened this little session. Productivity, right? This stolen focus. I just read this book where the attention span nowadays was really scary. Scary. And probably, I changed my mind on mental health. In the past, before COVID, I said this is not a topic that an employer needs to really take responsibility. This is something else. We are not experts in this. We cannot do that. And I was even giving some sarcastic, even if I'm not a sarcastic person at all, comments like, okay, you have a bad company culture. People are under super high stress because of, leaders that are really disrespectful. And then you get the yoga lesson in the evening to release release everything. So I changed my mind that we need to actually, because it's such a big topic and it's not really dealt with in the right way anymore, and we need to really take responsibility. And probably this topic of attention span, dealing with social media, having some good methods to really raise your productivity, again with deep work, or with some simple time blocking methods or whatever, or already having the awareness of how much you are distracted during the day. I have not done it up to now. And I always was joking about those old time management courses, because one fellow colleague, 100 years ago told me, he asked, then he had this one day training on time management, and asked the trainer, does he use, or he or she use the techniques that they are teaching? And then the trainer said, I don't have time for that. And then, we all laughed and said, okay, this is completely useless. Forget it. Maybe at one point in time, we need to change our mind again on those and really say, okay, are we not losing now productivity because everybody is so distracted? And next to mental health, which is also a significant, I guess, influence also on productivity. So probably we need to change our mind and really think about how can we help our colleagues now again to get better on that, because at the moment we are in this Wild West where, yes, nothing is regulated, and we are in this constant fight, probably every one of us, to not give in and I don't know, get in this loop of distraction, right? So probably that is a topic that we need to tackle. Yes, not so far away.
Indeed. Judith, thank you so much for your time. I think it was a great statement indeed. So let's get back to focus and get some stuff done. Thank you so much. It was really cool.
Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure. Very nice meeting you and talking to you, Benjamin.
Cool. And thanks to you all for listening in, and see you next time.